All right, today we have the pleasure of speaking with Lizette, a former teacher and counselor that has transitioned out of the classroom and into fields such as BDR, account manager, and now facilitator. We welcome Lizette to the experience. Welcome, Lizette.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Today I really want to talk about how you transition from classroom to, to being a counselor, and then from that to being a business development representative. So if you
Okay,
can
great.
talk to us about that.
The more I read and researched and taught myself about sales, the more I realized it was really aligned to the goals that I had for myself, both career wise, but it also lined up with the skill set that we have already as educators.
Yeah.
So I just decided to really narrow my focus and put all of my um, passion and pursuit into pursuing a role to get my foot in the door for the sales realm. I think being in sales really taught me a lot of grit. It
Hmm.
is tough. There are some days where you're not talking to people, you're getting voicemails all the time, but it really helped me lean into my problem solving. So
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I just think I'm older and braver. And I think that being in sales just solidified, just helped me to continue building that confidence.
So I have some interviews coming up,
Mhm.
and one of the things that come up in interviews is salary and pay. How do you negotiate pay, and is sales something that you can negotiate?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it really depends on each organization because I'm thinking back to just any interview that I've had. So for some places, there isn't a lot of wiggle room because it really depends on like where you're interviewing. Like, are you interviewing at a really big company? Are you interviewing at a startup? Because a lot of times,
Okay.
and then even if you're at a startup, what type of funding do they have? To like, what series are they at? Because that is going to play a role into how much they can actually really budget for that role. And some places are just easier in the sense that I guess I shouldn't say there. Some places are willing to negotiate, other places are not. And since leaving sales, um, you know, I will say that there are some roles that you can like have a wiggle room or they can get
Negotiate.
creative in the
Okay.
sense that they might not change your base salary, but
Okay.
there could be a signing bonus.
Was that something you said in the beginning, like when you first started talking? You're like, "Hey, just I don't want to waste your time. This is what I'm asking for," or did you wait until the very end when they
So I
started offering you something?
So I always ask them what the budget was for the position. I always led with that to try and find out what that was. And then I ask them to like, how flexible is that? How creative can we be with the benefit package? Okay, is this a base salary? Is there a commission structure that accompanies this? And then, just getting that information and whether there was a yes or no. And then depending on what even that base salary was, if that was something that had already met what I knew I needed,
Hmm.
it was whether that was going to determine whether or not I was really going to negotiate. I wasn't going to negotiate for every single thing and nitpick. But I definitely had a point in mind um,
Okay.
for myself. And I should say that too. Like, I'm not going to tell every recruiter, like, hey, I have to be at this price point. I have a mortgage. Like, everybody has a life. But like
Right.
sometimes I would just tell them, like, hey, building my confidence where I could be firm about like that salary conversation, but in a respectful manner. I mean, I might sound a little bit more sassy on this call because we're talking about in hindsight. I
Yeah.
definitely treaded much slightly, paused, like delivered it different.
Okay.
You, like because there is a way to say things, and especially as a counselor, I know that. So just learning, like, okay, this is my tone, my cadence. Like, how do
Of
I politely say
course.
this? I mean, again, I can say that with more
Give me a
enthusiasm
lot of
now.
money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I
And
guess
for me,
that,
for me, it's like also culture, right? Like you have to
yep,
want to, you get to know the people that are working there. Is it a good fit for you? Because you might be getting that high pay and you might be getting those benefits, but you probably hate where you work if, you're not fitting in with the culture. So,
yep. And sometimes, no matter how much networking you do, you're not going to know that until
mm,
you're there. Culture is important too, but I think also just really, if you're just looking at different benefits packages, going through and really thinking about those things before, because sometimes too, I feel like you can be swayed when you have different things in front of you and you're really excited. But yeah, just that is just something in hindsight that it's not a position I'd ever planned for because I didn't think I'd be lucky enough. And then when I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing.
And then you're like, woo. Yeah, but it's really cool how you went from sales and in the educational space, right? Well, education to the educational sales space, and now you're in banking, right? So it's
Yeah.
a whole different realm, whole different thing. So yeah, let's talk about that because my end goal is to be a corporate trainer. It's to do what you're doing, right? And to be a facilitator. So how is that, different from sales and how did you get into that?
What I did last spring and summer was I signed up for a graduate certificate that I absolutely loved. It was in instructional
Cool.
design, but specifically in training and performance. So it gave me a lot of the L&D or the instructional design fundamentals in terms of like adult learning theories and things of that nature. But it also really focused on training and following the Association for Talent and Development kind of model for training folks in the corporate space. And it was a lot more focused on corporate learning. And I loved it. I had some amazing professors. And so I just really loved it.
I know I saw like one of your quotes in the podcast that really stuck out to me was, we're service people and we're giving so much to our children and to everyone else in the community, right? And it's like we have to remember that we have to care about ourselves, right? Just as much, if not even more, right? Take care of ourselves, take care of our mental health and our mental state before we're able to, give back to others.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was really hard for me to come to grips with. Um,
Mhm.
but again, I think for me, some of the eye-opening aspect was watching some of my friends and colleagues become parents, and they are amazing
Yeah.
people. But I was just
Yeah.
like, I was very transparent, and I was like, I could not do what you are doing. Like, I
I'm so impressed with just your journey and everything that I learned today from just marketing your skill set to, your experience in interviewing and how you got into the corporate space. All of that combined is really, really incredible, really incredible. And thank you so much for coming on.